Hello, I'm Florence from HKU Libraries. I am the research service librarian at the libraries. So today, this section is titled "Peer Community in is the Future of Science: Empowering Authors and Community with Moving to Diamond Open Access and Community Initiatives." So just let me welcome all of you for attending this seminar here in the venue. And also I would like to welcome all of you attending online because this session is live streamed online on Zoom. So for Zoom attendance, please make sure that your microphone is muted and your video camera is disabled. And if you have any questions at any time, please use the Q&A box and type in your question and send it to us. In addition, you can also enable captions if you like to do so. And in addition, you could also select your preferred language if you would like to have a translation for this session. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the seminar. Recordings will also be shared with all registrants after the session. Okay? So, as you may know, this session is one of our events celebrating the International Open Access Week 2023. This year, the theme is Community over Commercialization. And today, we are glad to have Dr. Gilad Feldman to deliver a guest speech to discuss with us the challenges in open access publishing, and also share with us his own experience in tackling all these challenges. And he is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Hong Kong. So now, how about let's invite Dr. Feldman to give us a guest speech right now.
Thank you very much for coming. Very delighted to be here. It was a bit of a surprise for me to learn that there are others at HKU that care about open access and open science, because I've been here for about 6 years looking for allies and failing to find them. At least in my faculty, there's a little bit of a hesitation, ambiguity. What is happening? Why do we need this? Is this important or not? We've been doing science for so many years and things seem to be working. So why do we even need to change? Why do we need to talk about these topics? So when I learned that there's an Open Access Week and that the Hong Kong University Library does events about this, I thought finally at HKU that others care about open science. So I'm delighted to be able to meet you and talk to you. And if you want to follow up at, following the talk about any of these topics, you're welcome to reach out to me. My email, my website includes a lot of resources. I just want to say, if you want to download the slides in the spirit of open access and open science, everything that I do is open, including my educational teaching materials and all that. So one of the reasons to download this is because I'm going to share with you a lot of information in a very short period of time. Actually, I spend an entire academic year telling students and faculty and workshops around the world, telling them about the solutions and what is peer community in, and the things that we do here that I do with students. So to cram this up to just like 1 hour is not easy. Therefore, there are lots of hidden slides. So almost for every slide that I have, there are a few slides that include a lot of links that you can go and download and click on and search for information. But I'll go through things relatively fast, summarizing all the main points. So just before begin, I don't know if you know this, but everywhere that I go around the world, at least in Europe and the US, it's the year of open science. Who is behind this? So at the beginning, I work with the Center of Open Science that is in charge of the Open Science Framework. But everybody is behind this. The Biden administration announced this. So all federal agencies are required to talk about open science. NASA is leading this with a bunch of initiatives, a lot of online events. Much is happening. I just wish some of it would come over here to Hong Kong to be part of what it is that we do in our research environments. The structure is a little bit like this, so I would ask that you bear with me as I give you some introduction to some of the big topics before I come to some of the solutions. So we will be talking a little bit about open science is now a fact. It is happening. We need to prepare for this. We need to change the way that we do things. So I'll tell you a little bit of what is happening around the world with this. Challenges to our current system. We do things, but the system is unfortunately broken. I don't know how we came to invent this system, but every time I explain the system to the students, I have to apologize that we created this monster, and now we need to change from this in order to really better our ways. Starting with the solutions is peer community in. This is one of the most revolutionary things that I've seen. I've been tracking things for a very long time, looking for a solution. And I have to say that 5 years ago, I was starting to lose hope that we'll ever come out of this thing that we've created. But finally, peer community in came in. And for me, this was like, okay, so now we have hope that things are going to change and things will amend. I will also talk about one specific subcategory in peer community in that's called the registered reports, which is how I do my empirical research at the psychology department. I've changed everything that I do, including my courses with undergraduates, where thesis work with undergraduates and MSc, in order to do registered report under this umbrella. And I'll share with you some of that experience here at HKU as part of this large collaboration team with our students. So I'll start with open science, why it's needed. So for a long time, I needed to go around the world and tell people, you need open science. And they're like, but why? Now no longer need to listen to me. You don't need my credentials in order to convince yourself. Now there's UNESCO coming and saying, this is happening. We need this. Many countries around the world came together in order to decide this. If you want to know a little bit more about that, you can just like scan this. But since March 2022, we realized that we need to head in this direction. And not only this, but every year I'm being surprised with even more commitment to open science. So in Hiroshima, the G7 come together, and to my great amazement, in their part about science and technology, they are saying that the G7 will promote open science by equity, dissemination, the FAIR principles. So I really feel like, wow, the world is changing. The research really has hoped for the better. If the world leaders, when they come together to discuss all of the urgent things that are happening right now in the world, can dedicate a section just for the need for open science. What is open science? Sometimes we tend to think about open science as open access, but of course it is not. Open access is a very small part of a very large thing that is called open science that covers many, many things. And we try to do all of that when I communicate with my students, with my collaborators. That has to do with open methods, open code, open materials, and open data. Of course, open access, also sharing all our educational materials because we're being paid for this. We give this to our students. We need to contribute to our community. And also the way that we review things, peer review. Has this been done well or not? How do we know if everything is closed? So all this together kind of embodies open science and beyond. There's a whole process here. I won't go into all of that, but finally today we'll be focusing more about the HKU library and the open access kind of directions regarding the publication side, where we need FAIR principles, where we need identifiers in order to find the information, where we need to publish open access so that everybody, including our scholars, of course, but also the general public and decision makers, the G7 leaders, can access the things that they actually paid for. So all of this process embodies a lot of changes that are needed throughout. It's important to say that it's just a natural thing to have open science because everybody benefits from this, aside from maybe the for-profit publishers who have made a lot of money on this, and we'll be talking about them. But looking at all the stakeholders that we have, of course, taxpayers want value for money. They invest a lot of money in us. They pay taxes, government give our salary. We need to show that we have value. And if they can't benefit from that, then what are we here for? But everything in our research, researchers, the community, practitioners, our students, need to enjoy the benefits of open science. And there is also some initial evidence. It's controversial and it always goes in one or other direction. And of course, the for-profit publishers have some ways of showing this in different directions. But if we try to summarize all of the studies that try and show what is the impact of open science for the actual researchers, there are some indications that if we aggregate all of this together, so 46 out of all the studies show that there's higher citation rates, more collaborations. Aside from that, I can say from n equals 1, my personal experience is that since I started sharing everything around 2017, I get a lot of invitations for collaborations for people using my data, people using my materials from, of course, mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, all the way to Brazil, Africa. So we have a lot of things that just came from me posting everything that I do online. Challenges with our current system. This is especially frustrating for me. I feel this every day in my research work. We don't talk about this. We just take it for granted that this is the way that it is. But for me, this is intolerable. And whenever I try to talk about this to my colleagues, I'm kind of like ruining the party of why do we need to talk about these difficult topics? And I do feel it's important that we address these head on to share this, and we don't hide this from the students. When I start sessions with my students, I tell the students, I apologize, but this is the system right now, and we need to fix this. You need to know this coming in. Starting from incentives, there's this big gap between what we need to do for research, what research should be in open science. This is us, the strained researchers, trying to like balance all these things about how to do good research, how to do this open, how to do this reproducible, replicable, and with some relevance and practical implications for society. But then on the other side, we have all these incentives that go completely against what it is that we should be doing with research. And you can see just the general dynamic between what the incentives are promoting. So more novelty, more individual studies, innovation, individual projects, mostly promoting people who are considered to be leaders, promoters, and quantity. Just produce a lot. The more, the better. So what we should be doing is combining this with all other things that are about quality, that are about credibility. So instead of just interest and coherence, instead of just novelty, also replications and making sure that we confirm everything that we have. So this stress is about every day, every hour that I spend in research. I feel this all the time about this pull, especially as I need to apply for tenure, as my students are looking for jobs and looking to get into the academic system. This is something that we have to solve. At the heart of this, unfortunately, something that we need to talk about is this product. It's a market product that was created not for what it is that we've been using it, about impact factors. If you want to know about all the problems in impact factors, this is a good talk to start with. It's a very dark kind of talk. I suggest you listen to this guy, James Heathers. He's considered to be a data thug in the sense that he looks at scientific fraud and he looks at systematic problems in the scientific process. He also has a podcast called Everything Hurts. And it's amazing hearing this from him because he does not hold back. Everything that he sees that is bad, he says it out of the straightforward. Lots of issues with this. I'm not going to go into that, but generally the journal impact factor is what, in the name says journal. But we use this, of course, not for journal level implications. We use this for individual researchers. So if I submit to a journal that has a high impact factor, therefore I am considered to be of higher credibility, reputation, and so forth. Lots of issues with this. I just listed 10 here. It is a product, it is negotiable. So if you don't like your impact factor, if you're in a top journal, you can reach out and negotiate this with all sorts of things, like how do you count 2 years, from what kind of articles do you look at, is it commentary? So it's not just straightforward, something reproducible that anybody can track. often negotiated journal level and not researcher, looks at the past 2 years. So what makes a very immediate impact? Some of us make research that takes a while to build up. Not all citations are good. It looks at mainly citations, but some citations could be very bad. So for example, if you get citations for not doing a good COVID treatment, you will get high impact factor because of that. It's very easy to game this, and a lot of journals have been doing very well with that, with first online kind of thing that for 2 years it appears on the website just before it actually gets into the issue. And there's a lot of the Matthew effect. It's like if you already have high impact factors, you're going to get the work that people aim for having more impact. Therefore, it's something that historically just like enforces itself. Moving on to issues with publishers, this is something that I decided to do something about 2-3 years ago, completely disconnected from the incentives that I get from HKU. This is just a general graph, I think, that a figure that all of us see and understand. We have salaries and grants, we conduct the research, we submit to the journal. There's a whole thing about this black box that's called a peer review. We don't really know what happens in there, but we felt this because we went through this. Finally, something happens and the paper is being accepted. What happens then? The journal asks us to sign away our IP. So we've done all of this, taxpayers paid for this, but we give this completely for free to the journals. What do? They take our manuscript and they put this in whatever PDF, which is something that we can do for like in 1 hour. We do this with overlay for some other things. Then they upload this to a website where nobody can access this unless they are being paid. So institution pays, reader pays, author pays. We all pay for something that we all already did together by ourselves without the publishers at all. How much is behind paywalls? Actually, I think this is an underestimate. Worldwide, 70%. Europe, a little bit smaller because they took some strong actions. I just want to say how ridiculous the system is because they're triple and quad dipping into the same pool again and again. We're paying for this triple, quad the number of what it is that perhaps we should have paid for this, because you've got both the subscription-based journals and you've got the APC-based journals, some hybrid that combines some of this, and then the libraries, the HKU Library spent a lot of money on these things. Then the laboratories, like me, if we want to publish open access, pay APCs, we don't actually keep track of this. How much does each scholar pay in order to do the APCs? And then research institutions, of course, pay my salary, pay the grants. So all of us just pay more and more for no added value whatsoever aside from formatting a PDF. How much is this? In France, it's like 150 million euros a year. Europe, 3 billion a year. So every year, these publishers make a lot of money. How much money are they making? Their profit margins are about 40%, 30 to 40%. If you compare this to any other industry, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's no other industry better than being a for-profit publisher in the academic system. And all this is corruption. There's no other word to say this because they have zero value added. I'm just gonna play this very quickly because I think it's very impactful and we need to understand just the level of ridiculousness that this embodies.
Hey, Christopher.
Yeah, boss, what's up? What do you think about making some of our articles open access?
It's a good idea. Make the articles free to the public so that anybody can appreciate the latest scientific advancements. I like it. Of course, the author would have to pay some kind of publishing fee. Yeah, okay, that's reasonable. Well, like a couple $100.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe $11,000.
What?
Yeah, $11,000, and we put your article on our website for anybody to read.
Why so much?
Oh, you know, all the costs.
What costs?
Reviewing the article.
Yeah, we don't pay reviewers. We build it into it because it's good for science.
Okay, what about formatting?
Your 12-year-old niece does that for us.
Well, we gotta publish it, that costs money.
It's a PDF on a website. Kaylee does it in like 2 seconds.
Kaylee?
Your niece.
Oh, yeah.
Besides, who's going to be able to afford this?
Oh, people will pay.
Why?
Because they have to.
What do you mean?
Researchers have to publish in order to keep their jobs or get promoted. We're one of the most prestigious journals around. People will pay.
So it's extortion. Here at Nature, We're doing crime. Oh, Christopher, don't be so dramatic. So let me get this straight. You want to charge researchers $11,000 to publish an open access article, thereby ensuring that only researchers with the most money get to publish an article, which defeats the purpose of having open access articles in the first place. Yeah, that's right. And this is guaranteed to be profitable because researchers' livelihoods are dependent on a predatory system that values publishing in high-impact journals. Hey, you got it. This, of course, is insane. It's academics, baby.
It's academics. It's very sad for me to see this. Of course, we laugh, but this is our reality every day. This is what we're faced with. So I really appreciate Biden administration at some point saying, we have to stop this party. It's completely unreasonable. So everything that is funded by the NIH or the granting authorities in the US now needs to be completely free. And I was thinking for a while, wow, it's amazing. So the Europeans have done something like this, especially the Netherlands and the Scandinavians. The US is following with this. So perhaps end of days is coming for for-profit publishers. However, this is not the case because what they've done is actually, in some cases, tripled their open access fees in response to that. Which means that maybe for Americans or some places in Europe, they would have reasonable open access fees, but this is not the case for all the others that did not legislate this in their administration, in their countries. So now just the fees for things that we used to pay less for are now absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to play this video, but you're welcome to look at him making fun of that as well. Just this ridiculous response to what Europeans or Americans are trying to do to fight them. Which is basically, we've got this parasite, and this is for-profit publishers. We have to get rid of this, and I don't really know how to best do this. Some places in Europe just decided to just stop paying them immediately because we think that they think that they have a lot of power over us. But actually, many of us now have all sorts of other ways to get to our own research, either putting this on website, reaching out to people. Google Scholar does a good job, and other solutions. At the very least, we need to try and leverage some community effort in order to address this big problem that's lingering in the backdrop of everything that we do. Another thing that we need to do and need to consider is that we really need to stop reviewing and editing for these journals. I don't know why we do this for free, for absolutely no reason. We are supporting this system. So I really like it when I see these kind of responses from editors just deciding, oh, you raised your APCs because of the Biden administration, we're all quitting right now. So at the beginning, it was one case here, one case there, but now I see this more and more. Almost every other week, we get one of these things about this, all the editorials just quitting and forming their own open access diamond journals that have no fees associated with them. So this is where we should go. Not only should we stop paying for them, we should also stop reviewing for them and contributing what it is that taxpayers give us to give it to them for free. Lots of videos here as well. I'm going to skip this for now. Finally, closed peer review. I think this was especially painful during the pandemic. So we wanted to deliver solutions for COVID as fast as possible, but then it became a little bit difficult to know what is reliable and what is not reliable. So traditionally, we thought, okay, we have peer review, we trust this system almost religiously. Something happens in this black box, we don't know what it is, but we say, okay, we trust academics, therefore this happens. But it becomes very urgent for us to understand this trust system. And it's absolutely ridiculous, especially in a pandemic where, you pay my salary, you taxpayer, but you don't get access to my work. I don't know even why we think of this data sets that we have as our own. This is not our own. This is something that we promised our taxpayers to give to them. Another thing is about reviewing. Can you review my research project? Sure. Can you show me the work that you've done? No. What do you mean you can't show me the work that you've done? How can I assess you? How can I review your work? How can I say that this is credible if I have not seen every step along the way to understand how you got to the point where you accepted this article? So closed peer review system is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't understand how this could be anything related to credible science. Another thing is that we're gaming the system. So what it is that we do, because HKU promotes high impact factors, what it is that we do? First, we submit to Science. Rejected, okay, we submit to Nature. Okay, rejected, we submit to PNAs. Until, 5 years pass along, a lot of reviews went through this, just a waste of resources until we get to the highest impact factor that we can after all the rejections. Why? Why is this? Why do we need to waste the reviewers' resources all in each and every step of the way, and to take all those years in order to get to a publication? And many times it doesn't even get published, so it just gets thrown into a file drawer, and then we don't know. This vaccine, if it's a failed replication of this vaccine working, is in a file drawer. I want to know about this file drawer. I don't want to see just the 2 vaccines that, the 2 trials that work. I also want to see the 98 that didn't work that are in some person's file drawer. So we need to see what worked and what didn't work. We need to see everything together, and we don't need to wait 5 years for that to happen. Hidden reviews, hidden editorial decisions, a lot of conflicts of interest that we don't know. Did the pharmaceutical company support this? Did the Coke, Pepsi, sugary drink support this thing saying that this is better for you? We just need to understand what is happening here. It's not science if we can't see this black box. Peer community in comes and tries to address all of these issues that I told you about. How does it work? We have 2 different systems. One is the PCI peer community in, and there's also something that they added because there was a demand for this from the actual researchers that is called peer community journal, PCJ. This is what happens. It's a community of researchers, doesn't involve any publishers. There's no other people, and no publishers or for-profit or not-for-profit. It's just researchers for the community, by the community, us working as academics together. We have the platform. The technology is there. What they do is that they ask people to post things publicly on preprints. So if you have a pandemic or you have some global challenge, immediately this becomes available for everybody to see. They invite everybody around the world to give peer review, but they also assign experts. First, there's a recommender that acts a little bit as an editor that invites other reviewers in order to review the preprint publicly. So everybody can see what people are saying over the preprint. All this is done completely transparently online, citable with a DOI, based on recognizable platforms. So for example, I use a lot the Open Science Framework by the Center of Open Science, and they have themes for the different types of science. Unfortunately, we're still working on PCI psychology, but there's PCI for organizational studies, there's ecology, there's neuroscience, there's all these other things, and increasingly we'll have more and more themes. I think about 20 themes exist right now. How does it work? Author just posts things to a preprint, can go to PCI or not. The fact that it's already there as a preprint is already great because people can publicly comment about this on PubPeer or on any of the other platforms that are out there. But after it's posted on a preprint server, you can go to peer community in and ask for a recommender, for an editor to be assigned to that preprint who will just do what it is that we're used to do with journals, invite reviewers, do a peer review, and then update the preprint. So everything is done on what is actually out there publicly. And then after they all agree that this is the best work, that this is approved by this community, by the recommender and the reviewers, then there's an official recommendation and an open public posting of all the reviews together next to the preprint. This is a little bit what it looks like. So this is, for example, peer community in evolutionary biology. I don't think many people will see any difference between these and a general journal. So PCJ looks a little bit like that. Here you can see the public endorsement link. You can see all the badges for open access, open data, open code, open peer review. And then there's all the details, of course, when it was accepted and what was the process. And you can see the reply by the authors, and you can see what the reviewers asked and all of that. And finally, on the main website, everything is just documented very carefully. So it's just a pleasure to see this, a transparent, open, public way of looking at things that are out there posted on preprints. So it's posted as a preprint with a public endorsement. Then what? What can you do with this? For me, and for many people in the open science community, this is already great. This is already scientific utopia. However, a lot of people are saying, but I have to survive the HKU system. I have to survive the academic system. I want my students to be promoted. I want them to get jobs. What should I do? So PCI came with this revolutionary idea of PCI-friendly journals. So there are a list of journals. There are 100 journals right now that would automatically endorse with no additional peer review everything that is endorsed by the community. So if you got a recommendation from the community, they will automatically accept this for publication at their website. So you can choose either to go to Peer Community Journal, which they created. I think in 3-4 years, it will even have an impact factor. Because it's all of these fields together, it's going to have a high impact factor. And then you can go to any of the friendly journals that you know or are on your list on the HKU website and decide if you want to go with them or not. Right now, there's a bunch of things that automatically, so for example, some of them are relatively well known, like PCJ or Frontiers or some of that, but the list is actually much larger than that. Some of these journals are based here in Hong Kong, and I know the people, some of the scholars are editors over there. So even PLOS Biology or Gigabyte Gigascience, Ecology and Evolution, these are reputable journals that would say, once it's endorsed, recommended by the community, we just want to see that there is a good fit between the journal and what it is that was recommended, but they guarantee to give you a response within 5 days. Also happened to me that some of the journals get a notification that something has been recommended or endorsed, and the editor will reach out to you saying, please publish with me. You can publish with any of these other, please publish with me. And then I say, I'm happy to, but you have APCs. Will you waive the APCs? And then they say, oh yes, of course, waive the APCs. So it happened a few times when a journal that has APCs in order to publish open access contacted us, and they were willing to waive the APCs because now they have competition. I can publish my endorsed preprint with any of these journals. You want me to publish with you? No problem, waive your APCs. Therefore, you don't get to triple dip into the same pot again and again. So really a revolution launched very recently, so not too long ago, 2 years ago, but is already having a lot of impact. There is a commitment and endorsement. A lot of high-profile researchers have signed a petition saying, I will submit my best work to PCI. And I see more and more of that happening. So instead of submitting to Nature, instead of submitting to Science, people who have tenure, who don't have to fight like me for their promotion, are saying, we're not going to submit to the for-profits, we're going to submit to the community, because the community is what matters. This is how we get rid of the for-profit publishers. And of course, you maintain all your IP, you don't need to give all your IP away. There's a CC by, it's indexed by everything. And with time, give it, right now it's 2 years. It takes about 5-6 years to be indexed by all the impact factors. I think at some point, this will take over. And then finally, we can get rid of all the other journals and just move to the community. We don't need them anymore. So there's hope that this will actually be the status quo, the default for us a few years. So when my students are coming to me now and I need to train them, I don't train them for the system, the broken system that it is right now. I train them for what it is that's going to happen when they finish their PhD, when they are on the job market, when they are becoming researchers. I'm going to talk about peer community and register reports because we've done many of those. We've done about 25 of those. So 3 years ago, when I saw this coming out, I heard that this is happening. I met one of the founders, Chris Chambers, when I was in a workshop in Padova in Italy. I heard about this and I said, if this comes out, I'm dedicating all of my work to this. I'm stopping everything that I've done before, and I'm going to start doing everything in peer community and register reports. And I've been able to do this. So all the students working with me, all of my collaborators, this is our default. This is what we aim for. So there's this paradox that we talked about which part of the research study should you believe, do you believe that should be beyond your control as a scientist? This is the results. What part of the research study do you believe that is most important for your promotion in your career? Results. So the message that we get is don't touch this, which is the results, but make sure that the results are amazing. They need to be novel, they need to be groundbreaking, they need to be the best, they need to be p-value lower than 0.05, of course, across all hypotheses that you make. So there's this big conflict between what's best for science, which is high quality research published regardless of what the outcomes are, to what is best for scientists for our promotion, it's just showing all this novelty and all these amazing findings. So as we look at the science publication system, the process that we have, by now we've identified a lot of issues. So when we look at this, generate, specify a hypothesis, and design a study, collect data, analyze, interpret, and publish, we see that there's a lot of issues in each and every one of these steps, starting from we don't do any replication, so only 1 in 1,000 papers gets replicated. There's a very big problem with very small samples and low statistical power. There's a lot of problems with questionable research practices that I really wish that we would do more in Hong Kong, just to understand and see this and prevent students and faculty from doing all of that. And there's a big publication bias because we only publish positive results and we don't publish all the things that don't work, but we need to know about the things that don't work. So regardless of outcomes, we need to see the findings. So my first and big claim here is that register reports are the future of science. What is this register report idea? This is the current system right now, the traditional model where we do everything, we develop the idea, we design a study, we collect, we write it up, and only after we've done all of this, we submit this to peer review. But this is already too late because it's done. The research has been conducted. So the only thing that the reviewer can do whenever they see some flaw or there's some problem is either reject or ask for a new study to be collected. But there's a different way of doing this, and this is register report. This is a real hope for science. So we have 2 stages. The first peer review is done on a pre-registration. It's done on a plan. So then the reviewers can actually give you constructive, positive feedback in order for you to do better and improve. And only after everybody together agrees, you, the editor, and the reviewers agree that this is the best plan, they give you something extraordinary in science. It's called an in-principle acceptance. And this means that no matter what the outcome is, p-value higher or lower than 0.05, whatever the outcomes are, this is going to be published as long as you follow the pre-registration plan. So in stage 2, they're not allowed to start finding new flaws. The only thing that they need to do is review that actually you followed the plan that you registered in the stage 1, or you can deviate, but you need to be very clear what the deviations are, and then what are the justifications for that so that it seems reasonable. Stage 2 is just to make sure that you've heard or documented, justified your deviation. So suddenly all the problems that were in this cycle no longer there. So there's no publication bias because results regardless of the outcome, are being published. It eliminates all sorts of things like questionable research practices. You don't need to p-hack, you don't need to massage your findings because you know that whatever happens, this is going to get published. You can ensure that you have high statistical power because everybody needs to sign up on the pre-registration plan. So if there's a problem and it doesn't look like it's powered enough, you can add things and incentivizes the right kind of things. So they're a lot more open to replications and getting things done correctly. It started in 2013 with 3 different journals. By now we've got like 350 different journals. So it's really, really growing. If you want to see the list, there's lots of links here that you can press on. If you're not sure which one to submit to, there's also a system of feedback where we evaluate the different journals doing registered reports, which one of them does a better job than others. The main recommendation from me to you is that you should do registered reports. First, it's good for science, but it's also good for you. The reason why it's good for you is because if you have in-principle acceptance, regardless of outcomes, there's so many amazing things that you can do. First of all, you can already post this on your CV. It's a guaranteed publication. So your students, just by having a good plan, can post this and get some credit for this. It's also much easier to get funding because nobody needs to take a gamble on you whether this will succeed or not. They already know that this is going to get published. It already has gone through peer review. So they don't need to do the peer review because there is already a system that has given that to them. In addition, higher acceptance rates. My acceptance rates before I do a lot of replications and I do a lot of sensitive work that people are, feel very defensive about. Our rejection rate was about 70–80% before registered reports. Since registered reports, what is our rejection rate? It's 0. there's no reason to reject you, because if there's a problem in your plan, they tell this to you, and then you amend it. And then everybody agrees on this. So you don't not being evaluated on what the outcome is, it's being evaluated on all of us agreeing together on what the main the best plan is. And it's also a lot faster. And I will talk about how they do this magic with doing this faster. And there's more and more support for register reports as really reducing bias. So for example, here you can see positive findings for the first hypothesis is somewhere around 90%. So everything is positive. Everything is p-value lower than 0.05. But if you do a register reports, you can see the rate is a lot more reasonable, much more reflective of the complex reality that we live in, somewhere under 50%. Also, we can see that they did a randomized controlled trial where they hid whether a manuscript was a register report or not, and ask reviewers to say, what do you think about the quality? And register reports generally were rated as better on methods rigor, quality of methods, analysis rigor, conclusions justified, and overall quality of the paper just seems to be a lot higher for register reports. And we're still doing more randomized controlled trial, but it really seems like there's scientific evidence showing register reports as being very solid. I'm going to skip a little bit of that. And finally, I will come to what it is that I'm doing with my students. And this is peer community in registered report. So this is one under the umbrella of peer community in, but it has all the advantages of registered reports. Why do the peer community in? And to me, this was a very important development. First, they have something revolutionary where they guarantee peer review within 2 weeks. How do they do this? There's something called a snapshot that you do a 1 page about the plan of what you aim to submit. You submit a snapshot 6 weeks before you want the review. I work together with my thesis students for 6 weeks, wrapping up all the pre-registration plan. They go based on the snapshot and they recruit reviewers saying, we need you to review on this week. Who is willing to commit to this? So they find reviewers during these 6 weeks. We work on our manuscript. I work with my thesis students, and then we all aim for the same submission date. We submit, they have 1 week to review this, then 1 week a recommender goes over this and wraps everything up. And then they give you a very specific A, B, C, D, this is what you should do. If you do all of this, you will get an in-principle acceptance. At the beginning, in 2022, I was very, very skeptical that this would work. They have so far delivered all under 2 weeks. So this is unbelievable. In addition, what I just told you, that I can choose what journal I want to publish with afterwards. It never happened to me in my life that an editor comes to me and says, please publish with us. So this has happened a number of times with my undergraduates and MSc students after they've seen the public endorsement of our preprints. And everything is open, citable, identifiable. So finally, the people who actually help me improve the pre-registration plan can get credit for this by putting the DOI on their CVs. This is how they do the magic of 2 weeks. I won't go into this. What journals can you publish with? So actually the list for PCIRR is actually larger. So Collaborative Psychology was the one that approached us the most. She's also the incoming journal of a very prestigious journal in psychology, Psychological Science. So we're very hopeful that such an open science supportive editor will make big changes in also the top reputable journals according to HKU. But whatever it is that your field is, so for example, if you do neuroscience, you've got Cortex. This just came in after I approached them and I gave a workshop in France saying, you editors consider PCIRR, so they just joined in. So all of these will automatically endorse your publish this with no additional peer review, just based on the community. In addition, you've got some big names over here just lingering in the back and getting notifications, and occasionally they reach out to you. So Nature Human Behavior is a big one, PLOS Biology. So big names are also kind of like trying to understand, what is this PCI? Do I want to take part of this? And they are very, very curious, and they seem to be more and more invested in this, even though they are for-profit publishers. So they understand something important is happening here. I'm very active on Twitter, so I collect a lot of reactions to PCIRR, and people are just overwhelmingly impressed with this and like the review process. If you want to know a little bit more about this, lots of talks, lots of resources by the people who did PCIRR, also some articles that came out. You can go link on this and get some more information. Finally, I want to summarize what we did here at HKU, what I did with my students. So PCIRR, this is, the principles. I started to, it's on my website, all thesis students working with me. And we're talking about fourth year, so this is a 1 year, undergraduate thesis, or MSc, which is 1 year. Everybody that does a thesis with me has to submit their thesis as PCIRR, so they get expert reviews on their pre-registration plan. And once all of us agree together, the students, undergraduate students and MSCs, have a guaranteed publication. How many of these have we done? Already published on the journals, like for example, Collabora that I told you that approached us. We have 4 of those, but all of these students in the last 2 years have worked with us, and there's even more in the pipeline. So overall, we've had like 25 different, and it's amazing to see how much undergraduates and MSCs actually benefit from that. We really get high quality reviews. It really changes everything about a thesis. There's no reason for us to disregard an undergraduate thesis as something that should just fall into the file drawer. They can do amazing work. They can reach the highest standards of open science. So sometimes when scholars see what it is that the undergraduates are doing based on peer community in reviews, they're just blown away, because some of the work that these students are doing is much better than what some of my colleagues are doing without open science. This is how I do this. I won't go into this, but there's a whole process about how I do this advisement. This is what it looks like at the end. So this is a real project that we published. This is the recommendation by Chris Chambers, who started Registry Reports and PCIRR. So you can see the names of all the students, HKU students in my classes that were part of this. This is a recommendation by the community. These are the journals that we can publish in. And you can see all the peer review, and every person is identifiable. So this is really remarkable. In addition, we post everything on the Open Science Framework, so you can see our reply to each and every step of the way. You can understand how the manuscript evolved over time and how it got to what it is right now. So overall, our experience is just, I'm blown away. Every time I see this, I'm just like, this should be science. This is how we should all be doing things from now on. I don't really understand why there's no more of people picking this up and trying this. In addition, I will give a talk about this in a month or so. We have funding from HKU. I approached the Teaching Development Grant, and they gave us support. So if we publish with students on PCIRR, they give each student 8,000 Hong Kong dollars in order to support their data collection. So if you show that you have an in-principle acceptance from PCIRR, then they will fund your data collection. And I've done this with about 30 of my students. So this is amazing. There's no reason for this not to be the default at HKU. It's also a much cheaper way of doing science. I asked some of the students, early career researchers, to summarize everything for me. I'll just make it easy for you. They said that they learned a lot. The pro-open science support and feedback from the community feels like you're part of something important. You are not alone. Many PhD students feel like they're alone, that they don't know what they're doing, but being part of the community really changes everything. And it's very, very feasible. It doesn't matter if you're an undergraduate, an MSc, or a PhD, MPhil, whatever it is that you are, this could be the solution for you. If you want to hear from my students, actually, this is a good time, because one is presenting tomorrow and the other one is presenting next week. If you want to know how undergraduate students are doing peer community in Registry Reports, and these two, this one is already published and this is on the way. Come and listen to their experience, and they'll share a little bit about what they saw as students being part of this. And hopefully both of them will remain in academia, having gone through this process. So this sums up a very quick review of first the issues, the challenges, but also the beginning of a solution with some directions for us to move forward. All of the things that I just went through are on my website, so you're very welcome to visit. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm very active on this social media. I'm very happy to support you in your journey, support you in you endorsing peer community in and peer community in Registry Reports. So just let me know how I can help you in your journey towards open science. Thank you.
First one, what do you think would be the most challenging factor that hinders scholars choosing to publish in Diamond OA journals or using community-driven initiatives in scholarly publishing?
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, the incentives. So I completely understand. Like I talked to my colleagues, I'm not the only one this year applying for tenure. Many people say, when I get my tenure, then maybe I will publish Diamond Open Access. But then when they get tenure, they say, no, but now I have students and they need to get into the system. Therefore, I can't do Diamond Open Access. So it's very unfortunate, but we don't submit our best work to Diamond Open Access. And therefore, Diamond Open Access remained relatively less impactful in terms of the metrics that we use, citations and all of that. I'm hoping this would change. I'm hoping things like peer community in peer community in registry reports are going to change all that. I've committed, along with many others in the open science community, to only, or trying to, as much as possible, to only submit to Diamond Open Access or community initiatives. I call you, especially if you're tenured, to do the same. And I think at some point, because we have changes in assessment, HKU is still not there, but REF is changing in the UK, and usually the REF in Hong Kong follows that. And there's DORA assessment changes, saying that we don't need to look at impact factors anymore, but we do need to look at the value and the impact for our stakeholders, the taxpayers. And Diamond Open Access just ensures that all of them can access our research. There are some benefits for all sorts of other things, but this will take time because the incentives and the parasites that are the for-profit publishers are so strong and have brainwashed us so much that we can't get out of the system. So sometimes you need to take a risk, you need to be brave, you need to say, I don't follow that. Even if HKU is asking me to, I'm going to try and do things differently. If they decide to me, great. If not, there's other places, more in the US and Europe right now, that would be happy to. So it does require some kind of courage and a decision on your part to aim there. I'm hoping that in 5 years, the whole landscape will be different with Diamond Open Access doing a lot better. But we need to move towards these journals. We need to get away from for-profit publishers.
Are there any impacts to authorship when peer reviewers influence the design of the study? How are peer reviewers' intellectual contribution acknowledged?
Yeah, so in peer community, it's easier because everything is citable in DOI, so at least they get credit. You see exactly what it is that they raised and how we responded to this. I have to say that some of their contributions were so amazing that I felt like they should be co-authors. Like I really want to give them co-authorship, but we do need to be careful about like conflicts of interest. So the best credit that we can do is to revise based on their feedback and to acknowledge them when we respond to the citable DOI review that is posted online. And also happened that somebody who reviewed my paper at some point later became a collaborator, and then we did things together following up on that kind of work. So you need to be careful about this, but as long as everything is transparent and all conflict of interest are being acknowledged and are out there, then everybody can evaluate this. It's a much better system where peer reviewers are not acknowledged and are not, you don't see how they influence the whole process. So the very least transparency in peer community and these kinds of initiatives helps with this for everybody to get credit and for you to understand everything about the scientific process and everything that took place.
The question is, do you see your proposed open access publication model applicable to most scientific disciplines, or you might see some exceptions?
Yeah, so peer community has many thematic, so they have a lot of domains and they're growing more and more. There are some challenges, so not everything is as straightforward. I have to admit, I'm a quantitative researcher. I don't completely understand how this would work with, let's say, the humanities or qualitative research. There are some domains that we're still trying to figure out a few things on how peer review would happen, how are assessments going to be included. So the concept of register reports, if you've got existing data sets and things are already out there, or if it doesn't have any numbers or anything, data sets involved. How do you do registry reports? Is there any value in this? So we're still trying to figure this out. At the very least, I would say that for confirmatory quantitative research, I would say that this applies for all disciplines. So if you're doing something with numbers and you're trying to conform hypotheses, regardless of whether you're social sciences or exact sciences, throughout the sciences, there is this room for this model to help you out. To figure out qualitative research in the humanities and some of the other things that I don't know much about, I think we're still like in the process of figuring things out. Although I've seen like part of PCI is you have things like archaeology. I don't know how many numbers are involved in there, but I think there's more of a narrative going on. You're welcome to go and check out the different themes in order to see how they do things in archaeology. If you have an idea, something that you want to raise in order to help PCI improve, you have an idea on how to make this better so that you would apply to them more, they're very, very eager to help you out, to listen. They're very engaging. They already gave us a talk at HKU last year, and they're willing to come in and do more of those. If you reach out to them, they will respond. They are willing to implement innovations in their platform. So if something is missing, just let them know.
How much time do you spend on coordinating the work involved? Like if you get approached by several authors asking you to review their paper and you have got your own students to support, how do you juggle the priorities?
Yeah, it's a general question, I think, about research life in general. How do we juggle all our priorities? The only difference between doing this for the community or doing this for the for-profit is that when I do this for the community, I actually feel like I'm having some value rather than helping for-profits make more money. So I feel like this is a better use of my time. And because everything is open and because everything is citable and because there is an acknowledgement every step of the way, I feel like it's a better use of my time and what taxpayers have invested in me and my salary and my grants. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, especially now as we're trying to create this. But every time that I've seen some obstacle where, for example, we needed more reviewers or there's not enough recommenders, editors in the community, I go on Twitter and say, we need more people. And immediately you've got like hundreds of people coming in and wanting to contribute. So if you reach out, you communicate, you try to build on the power of community on social media and beyond, then there are ways to overcome this, especially if it doesn't involve all the traditional publishers and it really feels like it's for the community. Also, we find each other on conferences. I go to, I think what I've felt was the most amazing conference that I've ever had. Society for Improvement of Psychological Science is based on hackathons where we all sit together. So rather than me presenting my research and tapping, good work, I've done good work. Instead of that, we all sit together in a round table from undergraduates to full professors, editors, and we'll hack solutions together. So something after 3-4 days of this kind of conference, solutions come out. And if there's something that is bothering you about not getting enough credit or you're too overwhelmed, just come to one of these sessions and see what happens when you open things to the community. So I did not mention this, but even when I work with my students, with undergraduates, we do everything on Google Docs. Every time they finish a stage, I go on Twitter and say, who wants to help us? And sometimes scholars, full professors go on undergraduates' Google Docs and give them comments, which is absolutely remarkable because for the first time, undergraduates actually feel like they're part of the community, like big professors actually value their work, that it's not something that's just for the thesis nobody is ever going to read, but something that really contributes back and there's this interaction and engagement with the community. So difficult to juggle, but if you communicate your efforts and your needs, then I think the community will come together and support you in that.
Thank you. The next one is a comment. I'm intrigued by reviewers' reviews also being published to show their knowledge or lack thereof.
Yeah, I think it's always intimidating when things become open. So for example, with my data, so some of the reasons where people say, I don't want to share my data in my code is because I'm afraid that somebody will see how stupid I am or how many mistakes I've done. But for me, over time, I've come to understand that it should be exactly the opposite. Because I'm scared, I want others to help me find mistakes. I don't want to find this mistake 20, 30 years when I'm tenured and millions of dollars have been spent trying to replicate my work. I want to know this now. So because I'm scared, because I don't know if I've made mistakes or not, the only way to address this is just to share everything openly. So if you don't know how to do peer reviews and you're scared, just communicate this. In my reviews, I write, this is my name, this is my rank, this is my specialty. I don't know much about what you've done here, but here's my opinion. Please don't use that in order to reject a paper, but take this as a whole with other reviewers, acknowledging my limitations as a reviewer. So when you're scared about your limitations, just acknowledge them so that the editor, the community, the reviewers can all be better informed about those limitations to do a better job. It could very well be that you've made a mistake, but at least you've acknowledged this limitation, and you can learn from that. Happened to me a few times. Actually, if you go on my website, there's a section called Check Me, Replicate Me. I actually offer money to people. If you want to make good money, come find my mistakes. I pay $5 for a minor mistake, $50 for a big mistake. I invite you to attack my reviews, my preprints, my published work. And happens because in my courses, I tell my students, not only do I ask you to read my papers, but if you find a mistake, I will pay you. And I've done this before. I give them two options. Either I pay you, or if you donate this to charity, then I will double it. I will match it. All of them have decided to donate this, but we've donated a lot of money. You can go on my website and see how many mistakes they found. I think it's a very good experience for students to see that professors make mistakes. We're human. Mistakes are natural. We need to acknowledge them, not hide them away. So this is my view on why open science is so important. We need to understand that we have faults. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, and we need to communicate this to the public and acknowledge this. Of course, in the aim of overcoming and correcting and doing better next time.
Okay, so we don't have much time left. So let's move to the last question on Zoom. How does each community recruit sufficient reviewers? The main problem on my OA journal is finding reviewers.
Yeah, peer community in is remarkable because I've not seen problems with recruiting reviewers. If anything, sometimes we get too many reviewers because they become too enthusiastic. So they send out, I don't know, 5, 7 requests, expecting that maybe 2 will answer, and then all 5 or 7 accept it. So now they have all sorts of things that they're trying to build into the system to kind of limit how many resources are used for each article. Happened a couple of times. Actually, if you go to peer community in, you will see that there's, it says preprints in need for reviewers. So if you want to be a reviewer, if you want to get a citable review to add something to your CV, you can go and you can decide to be a reviewer for one of the things in peer community. Sometimes when we don't have enough reviewers, I go on Twitter and I say, who wants to help? And always we're able to almost immediately within 1 hour get more reviewers. So one of the nice things about this community, so rather than one diamond open access journal that nobody maybe knows, now that we have this community and it involves all of the diamond open access journals, it involves all of us together without a specific publisher, then there's more probability, higher chances of you finding reviewers. I have not seen this being a problem so far in peer community and it does have quite a high number of submissions.